Alright, so we're moving on now to the literature review. I changed a few things in here, but the bigger issue to pay attention to in your writing, if you notice on the edits that I sent you, every few lines you have something in green asking a question. Usually a question about the context or the content of what you're writing. What does formation mean in this context? From what to what? Is the argument that NGOs should be in the lead? Is it a settled matter that reducing flow is a bad thing? What this indicates is that although your writing is mechanically pretty good, I'm not correcting a lot of grammar issues with you, you're suffering from what's called the curse of knowledge. And I'm not making this up. Steven Pinker, the Harvard psycholinguist, I have some readings in the syllabus from him if you want to follow up on it. He's been the one who popularized this. The writer is not, I gotta start the clock. The writer is not aware of what the reader does and doesn't know, or they assume certain things about the reader's knowledge. Usually the reader knows more than they actually do, and it makes it hard for the reader because the reader doesn't know these things, so they get frustrated. They have to go look stuff up. Particularly if you're working for someone, it's a bad situation because they're like, why have I hired this person? I'm doing all the work. So that's the thing you have to be careful about, is you have to develop an internal editor, and that's what these videos are supposed to help you get, is an internal editor who's reading along, looking over your shoulder at your writing as you read your writing back, and is asking these same questions that a person who's coming from a state of naivete would ask, like, what does that mean? Always asking, what definition, how does that concept relate to the other concept? And always those questions will lead somewhere, and they fill in the gaps in your writing, and that's what turns you into a better writer. Again, your mechanics are pretty good. I'm pretty psyched with them. A lot of students have a lot of trouble, and that's a harder thing to fix. Although don't underestimate the curse of knowledge. It's pretty devilish. Just being aware of it isn't enough. You have to really practice it and really develop that inner narrator, as I say, that inner voice that's reading what you're writing. It can also be reading what someone else wrote, but asking the obvious questions about what does it all mean. So anyway, I did make some changes. I started off saying historical outline of immigrant categorization and the differences among migrant, immigrant. I always have to go and look that up. It's all not my field, but anyway, migrants are people who just move around. Migrants are like animals migrating, and also people who move around for work, but they seem to not, be moving somewhere with a purpose to stay. Immigrants are going somewhere with the intent of staying, and emigrants are people leaving a country with the intention of not going back. So it depends on which side you're on, whether you're leaving or coming or what have you. But anyway, historical outline of the immigrant categorization in the international community and an appropriate foundation on the general topic of mass migration in the modern era highlights the trouble caused by overlapping at times ambiguous labels given to refugees. I think that's a pretty good sentence. I think it sets you off on the right foot. Those issues, again, not these issues, those issues arise largely from growing leadership role of governments rather than NGOs. And so at this point, I think I'm pretty much taking from what you wrote and just reordering the sentences a little bit. Needed a cite there at the end of that sentence too. The thing is, where's the required bibliographic information? Again, in the video, in the junior writing guide, there's a certain format you're supposed to follow. And you have examples too, papers, and they all follow the same structure, and you've gone off and done a different structure. Now, I don't penalize people for that as long as what they put down is okay, but you still need that bibliographic information in here. And also it tells me that you could be paying closer attention to the directions I'm giving you. So I don't know if you're reading it and ignoring it or not reading it, but one way or another we've got to have a meeting of the minds on that, because part of this class is about following directions on certain things. I don't have a lot that I'm a stickler on, but I do want people to include that language in the introduction that I point out and use the bibliographic format that I've recommended here. Anyway, so I think we get through the first paragraph. Again, though, I have some highlights in there. What does formation mean in this context? Transformation from what to what? Again, you've got the curse of knowledge going on, and that's holding your writing back a bit. Considering, I'm on the second paragraph now, my edits. Considering the scholarship on forced migration, refugee movement, and international law, Zetter further posits that. You say that differently. You say Zetter found that landscape, modern conflict, okay? This is one of those things where I'm trying it a different way. You may like it more, you may not like it. It's up to you. Sometimes we just have to kick a few possibilities around. I have more of these green highlighted questions to help you see what that inner voice should be asking, okay? In this case, is the argument that NGOs should be in the lead? Is it a settled matter? I've read you these ones before, but you know, those are the questions I had when I was reading it, and what you gave me didn't answer those questions. So a reader who's really trying to understand this is going to become frustrated with that. Zetter found the landscape, didn't change anything there, although you were using Zetter's name, and there's also, I mean, on the course webpage I explained this. If it's in a section of a literature review, you don't include the author's name. If it's completely not ambiguous whose paper you're referring to, whose article you're referring to, you just use the page number. That's just my system. Trying to unencumber you in the writing so that it's a writing that matters. You have to concentrate on, not some arcane formatting and citation system. In addition, preferable to additionally, I maintain. Consider moving these sentences up to the first paragraph in this section. So you're defining things, asylum or label. You're talking about different labels, not defining them, but asylum seeker. So some things should be moving up. The structure for these literature reviews, articles have what's called there's a canonical form that a lot of articles follow in political science. Introduction, methods, results, discussion. You have room for about 4 paragraphs on these literature review sections. You should start by introducing what the article's about, discussing what they did in terms of methodology. Third paragraph, what did they find? And the last paragraph, you discuss it and maybe lead into the next section. You have to have a plan before you start writing these things, and that's, you know, that strengthens a person's writing greatly when they get to that stage where they're outlining and they have a plan and they're not just simply just putting stuff down on the page to sort of fill in the white space. You need a plan. So Article 2, this is Song's article. What about individual countries? Again, I'm asking these questions that your internal editor should be asking. Where are we simultaneously? So you have in this sentence, you say, individuals seeking protections in neighboring governments and simultaneously act as administrative. So I break that into 2 sentences and I start saying he further maintains that. I think it was a bit of a run on there. And you have government's ability. So I needed a cite there for sure, in that sense, and limited government's ability. You say disempowered government's ability. Disempowered, again, just a word I'm seeing as jargony, not a particular fan of it myself. I say instead of existing, the existing categorization of immigrant groups. So here's another issue that's coming up is this is getting pretty redundant. You've from your readings, you seem to have established that categorization is not helpful and that neighboring nations suffer under the way we're doing things, and it's getting repeated. In such a short paper, things are getting repeated too much, and that's a bit of a problem. So we've got to figure something out about that. You have the rest of the way on Article 2. So for Article 2, right, you give me a little introduction paragraph and then a kind of a longish second paragraph, but it's not very much length. You're actually, if you add up the lines in here and take my comments out, you're at around 3 pages on a 4.5 page section. That's a third short by like 33% of what it should be. Or it could also be said that a section that's done to the parameters I'm requiring is 50% longer than what you gave me. Part of learning how to write is learning how to nail the page counts, and it can be difficult. I admit that. And already you are tending to repeat yourself. My sense is you're busy, you have a busy life, and this is not getting your full attention. I can tell you're smart from what I'm reading, but I'm just the slightest bit troubled by what's going on there with not following the program and being short in length and so on and so forth. So my comments are pretty self-explanatory through here. I really do change things up a bit at the end. And at the end there you talk about Zetter, while Zetter's piece is a foundation of the articles. So is one of the foundational articles, categorization of immigrants, song, so then you bring in song and so on. That's the kind of thing we want in the next section. In the analysis section, you compare the authors to each other. So you've got an analysis, part of your Article 2 summary really is an analysis section more than anything else. Anyway, you didn't double space on that last one. I'm not sure why, but sometimes we get these strange formatting mess ups. I still got a little bit of time to do Article 3. So you want to go to the from now on CNS thing. Where is required bibliographical information? I'm looking for that still on all of these sections. Missing site. The authors, I would say they also describe classification of refugees, just the current approach. Then at the end of the second paragraph, you say the authors also make findings regarding individual anecdotal examples. I say the same is true of the oversimplified classification of individuals. And then have the authors also make findings regarding individual. Yeah, that last sentence there needs a cleanup, basically, is my comment. I really wasn't able to follow it too closely. And then the last paragraph that you have there, I made a few tweaks to it. CNS build upon the previous two articles. That furnished outlines of and drawbacks of that process. The authors, and there it's hard to tell which authors you're referring to. Put those findings, what findings? The last sentence is about outlines in the previous articles. In the context of the current Mediterranean immigrant crisis, and the ways I say that the flawed system so there is a need for cleanup in there. I'm running out of time on this video. I just want to quickly say refugee categorization in the humanitarian system and provide examples of specific. Alright, I have a note there. I think I needed to change that around just at the end. So I'm sending you back the cleaned up edits. You can go through these as you watch the video and put it all together. But other than that, I think there's a lot you can do to really fix this up and get it so it really hums along nicely. I'm going to do the last video now. Thanks.